Welcome to the Exhaust Notes podcast. My name is Nick Ingvall. I am your host today, and today I get to find out what it's like to go to your first ever Formula One race from two people I'm lucky enough to call friends. Whether you're a lifelong fan of Formula One or just joining the fun thanks to Netflix's Drive to Survive, or maybe you're just curious about what it's like to go to a race with over 140,000 other fans, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the Exhaust Notes podcast.
Hey, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Exhaust Notes podcast. My name is Nick Ingvall, and I am here today with my good friend Aaron Nojima and my brother Ash Lewin to talk about Formula One in Austin. And unfortunately, I didn't get to make the inaugural trip to Formula One. I still haven't made it to a Formula One race, but if you've listened to previous episodes of the podcast, you know it's a big deal for all of us that are kind of connected to this here community. So just want to introduce Aaron and Ash and talk about their experience at Austin this year. So what's good, guys? How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the pod and to talk about F1 and F1 in the U.S.
Yeah, doing good. Good to see you guys. Always happy to chat about this stuff.
Yeah, so we the three of us, I would say, have been going to races for pretty close to 20 years now. I don't know when the first one was. I think it was probably like 2002, maybe 2002 at Sears Point, pre-Infineon days. But it's not. What is it called now? It's called something different again.
Goes back to Bandimere, actually. Goes back to Bandimere drag races in high school.
So, well, yeah, for you and I, yeah. But I was thinking like, like we started going to American Le Mans at 2001, 2002, right?
That was 2000, so. Yeah, 2002, I think.
Yeah, early 2000s for sure. And same thing. I mean, Sacramento Raceway for Wednesday night drags, and before we learned that straight line is not the best line.
Yeah, exactly.
Going seeing actual road racing and whatnot. So
yeah, man. So I guess like before we talk about Austin specifically, Formula One in the last I feel like the last 3 to 4 years has just blown up in the US. And the craziest part about it is it's like people that I don't think are as into cars as maybe the three of us are, but I think that's actually even cooler, right? Because it's becoming like something bigger than cars, right? It's becoming, it's like the Netflix specials and all this stuff that are kind of compounding the interest level to where you start having all these like crazy celebrities show up and just massive amounts of people that you don't expect. And to me, I just think it's always good to have more people interested because it brings more opportunity for people to find a way to do something like that, do something that they love. The more popular something is, more opportunity. But I can't remember the numbers, but I think I texted you guys and it was like 140,000 people in Austin or something like that over the weekend.
Yeah, so it was
400 over the weekend, right?
Yeah, it was 120 on Friday, 140 on Saturday, and then 140 plus on race day. I think were the numbers that were mentioned. So I believe it's one of the largest events pre-COVID or post-COVID, best way to put it. And not just in the United States, but I think in the world. So it's pretty crazy to think that was part of that.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, I think Sam Collins was saying that on F1 TV. He was talking about how they were thinking it was like the all-time record for attendance, but there was some other race in Europe that had done it like back in the 70s, I think. But it was definitely like what he agreed it was like the biggest turnout in like the modern era. So
wow, that's nuts.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I think to what you said, Nick, like it's definitely so much of it is due to Drive to Survive on Netflix. And we had a guy that we ran into there that was kind of one of the like OG guys who said he'd been going since like the 70s and going to a lot of different races. And he kind of asked us if it was Drive to Survive that, that got us into it. And we're like, well, not exactly, but I have to admit, like it renewed I felt more connected to it for sure. So it renewed my interest in it. Cause I think once we went into sports cars, that was the whole thing, is that it was something I could be closer to the story. And
yeah.
I think now with Drive to Survive, it's like now whether you're into cars or not, or whether it, it sparks that in people to just be into motorsports. It's all about those stories and getting closer to the characters, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think so much of it, like I said, is like, especially for us, because I think we're all Honda fanboys, and that's what we started out with, and then them being in the sport back then in the 2000s, and having such a long history and lineage in racing, especially in Formula One, and then them obviously having the uprise in the past few years, along with Drive to Survive, has definitely boosted. Like it's not to say that I wasn't interested in Formula One before that, but then having other people that you didn't think would be interested to talk to about definitely helps this situation. And it's we all know sort of the drama and stuff is messed up, and like obviously and there's definitely characters on there that play it up and whatnot, but that's the type of stuff that it's the love hate of it, right? It's like, oh, okay, it's like Fast and Furious. It's like, oh, okay, that's not a true representation of the scene, but it's going to get more people excited talking about it, getting them into it, and hopefully they're in it for the long run and learn more and get passionate.
So you're saying that you didn't steal DVD players in your Civic with neon lights under it and drive under truck trailers while you were a younger adult?
I mean, my Civic was pretty low. I don't know if it would fit under the thing, but no stolen DVDs and no neons in that vehicle. At least that one.
It is kind of crazy because I was thinking about like just the three of us, being roommates back in the day and watching, Jensen Button and the bar team and all of those, like, to the Drive to Survive influence. Like, of course, it influences our relationships with other people. I mean, my girlfriend Kim, is fully invested in Formula One at this point and waking up early to watch the races, and that would have never happened without getting to know the characters behind it, right? Because it's kind of like football, right? American football is impossible to actually like know who's behind a helmet and a mask compared to basketball or baseball or something, right? And with Formula One, if you watch, you get to see the drivers and the team and all of that stuff. But if you're not introduced to all of the nuances of all those teams or the relationship that exists between all those teams, like all these guys play in the same sport that is 20 teams, right? So like, it's not even, it's more tight knit than any other sport in the world, in my opinion, because all these guys travel the world essentially with each other, regardless of, what team they're on this year. They're going to be out there racing, 90% of them are going to be out there racing or a part of our team next year and still see the same people and the same, characters, but just maybe wearing a different, sponsor. And I think that part is really kind of highlighted by Drive to Survive. But like, even just seeing like the Schumacher, Netflix movie come out, and like those types of things just would not have happened, 10, 20 years ago, because you just didn't have enough people with interest in the sport on a global scale. Especially here in the US, right? Like it was still super popular and is arguably one of the most popular sports globally. But I think in the US, having Netflix be like the window into even the dramatized version of racing is a window that most people didn't even know existed prior to, it being on Netflix. And it's interesting because I also think, to Aaron's point about, being Honda fans and driving Hondas back then, I guess pre, 2008, right? Because the financial crisis hits and, Honda bails on Formula One. So we didn't really stop going to races. We stopped watching F1 because we didn't have a Honda, like a team that we felt connected to the way we did when Honda was on the,
Right. Because remember, we were following Honda and Acura in sports car. I mean, they were in that way, and in a touring car and all that. Yep. So it was like, again, it was like we were the connection to us and our love of Honda and imports was like, it was like we could go to the tracks and we could be not just trackside, but we could be in the paddock. We could go to the grid. We could get signatures from these drivers. We could talk to them about their cars. And it was all the way from like the guys that worked their way up from Honda Challenge, who made it to touring car, who could get a seat in a GT car. Like it, you'd see that, you get to see that journey unfold. And I think that like I think the interest would have been there back in the day, but it's the new media, right? We have these new outlets and the new, because the same thing that's going on for Formula One right now. And I don't follow NASCAR. We never have. And it never felt like, for a while, we didn't understand, like, why was it so popular? And it felt like it didn't need that kind of coverage. But I'm sure to some extent there was that connection that, I mean, I knew people that liked it and they loved following their driver. And I'm sure any kind of platform like this on Netflix would help any sport, really. It would grow it. And so it's probably, hats off to the new ownership, like over the past, several years that have kind of made this happen.
Yeah, and the new ownership definitely is being American based also probably helps. But just talking about Netflix, and I think a big part, especially sports in America, because like you were talking about racing as a sport, it's that connection, right? Like in America, like people have to be connected to a sports team or a player, and then they get invested in it. I mean, as much as I think like football is by far the most dominant, American football is the most dominant sport in America. And I really believe like 50% of people are in it because they play fantasy football, because they're like emotionally and financially invested into it, because they don't necessarily care about, and that's sort of like just sports in general. There's of course a lot of us who are just, diehard fans of a particular team. But now as we grow older and technology and the world changes, a lot of people are more invested in individuals and personalities. And so like with Drive to Survive, it gave us that people like are invested in like a team or a driver, like, which I'm happy to see, because, if you guys know, like Kimi Räikkönen, unfortunately is retiring this year now, but he's been one of my favorite drivers for a long time. But it was like his personality, because, we joke around that he and I have very similar, ways of speaking and senses of humor and things like that. But then that's why, I was invested in him and just, following his career. And regardless of what team he went to, I was still always going to root for him. And in Formula One, just with Drive to Survive, the many documentaries and just stuff like that, I think people could get behind a team or a specific driver and be excited about that.
Aaron, I just want to see you make a drunk tumble down a yacht. That's what I want to see. And that will complete. I mean, I'll be okay with Kimi not being around anymore if I can see that.
And if he would hire me just to be a stand-in or something.
Well, if we get sponsors for this podcast and end up going to Monaco to cover a race, then, that'll be on the bucket list.
There you go.
I'll do it for the Red Bulls. I'll just get drunk off Red Bulls and do it for a sponsorship from that.
Get a little dizzy.
Yeah.
Well, it is funny because like the specific drivers, obviously, once you start paying attention, like I've been watching a little bit more NASCAR in the last year or two, basically because of specific drivers, and it's like, I'll learn something about somebody and think, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then, just pay attention. I'm not following it like, every race or anything, but I'm checking in on it to see how things go in a way that I never really did before. With social media too, like, having access to all these teams, you get to play up the characters even more. And I think, specifically in Austin, right, you see that with like Daniel Ricciardo, right? Here's a guy who is, probably the class clown, if you could label a class clown of all the drivers right now. And he's essentially, just always happy, fun, to be around. Right. And him getting to, I think I don't remember when the bet was. Do you remember when the bet between him and Zach Brown?
It might've been when he signed. I just know it was the thing was actually just to get a podium. It wasn't even to win.
Yeah.
Because if he got a podium, you'd get that opportunity.
Yeah. So basically, they had a bet. If he got a podium, Zach Brown, who's essentially head of McLaren, gets a tattoo of the track that the podium happens, and Daniel Ricciardo gets to drive Zach Brown's. He owns the Dale Earnhardt NASCAR, the Wrangler NASCAR from '86 or whatever it is, and Ricciardo gets to do laps around Austin in that car from that bet. I mean, that's the type of stuff I think when you realize how kind of normal they are, as opposed to they're like the gods of racing or the gods of, Formula One or whatever. And you just get to see that normal kind of fun stuff. It just makes you want to pay more attention, right? It makes me want to follow them on social media. It makes me want to care about what they do off the track in a way that I never really ever thought of with any other drivers.
Yeah, and I think that's the success of it, though. Really, it's not that you look at the way athletes have changed in the spotlight, right? To be authentic and down to earth, and really just kind of we get to see their personalities in a way that you can't really compare to previous generations because they were always on the screen in a certain way, and we had expectations for them to be that way. And once that that filter and that lens came down, we get to see them more in that just being themselves, and then we connect more because then we have more. It just feels like there's more access to them, right? It's more accessible, and I think that's what's really cool is not only are we finding out that it's yes, we can, because we can really have access to anything, but we identify with it more than anything. Because if they took down and we saw behind the curtain and they all acted like royalty all the time, we'd just be well, forget that. I don't have anything in common with these people. But when you start to realize that they're driven and passionate, competitive, and they love to have a good time, and they like to prank each other, and the teams, there's rivalries and there's allies and and they grow up through this together. It's they're just very human, which is super cool, and it definitely takes it to another level.
And Ricardo's the perfect face, or it's for F1, and he has been for a while. Even when he's coming up to Red Bull, his personality, his smile, being Australian, he was always the funny. You could look up YouTube compilations of him, his funniest moments and interviews, and the stuff he does, right? And yeah, sometimes it seems like it's a little overboard, but I think that's just him. And it's also, I think that I forget there's a thing, but the McLaren team is technically the most popular team, I think, and it's because of the social media presence, because they show him and Lando, one driver, really young, real great driver, which is Lando, and he has his personality, and especially coming from the UK where F1 is really based, he has that huge fan base. And Ricciardo just he just has the personality that lights up the room, that people just can't help to gravitate towards, right? Like everything he did in Austin, from growing out, his beard and mustache to driving NASCAR, and even just talking about. I actually just watched the McLaren YouTube where they actually had Buffalo Bill fans, and they took them for a whole week to give them an F1 experience to try to make them F1 fans. And of course it was the McLaren team that did that. And Ricciardo, and I, in terms of salary, I believe he's making 15 million and Lando's making 5 million. But they're well, Lando's technically the better driver this year, especially, right? But then what Daniel Ricciardo brings to them, PR wise, is
value.
Yeah, you can't. I'm sure they can, but then you really can't figure out the value of that, because just from Austin being how big it was and his presence, and obviously he wasn't. We all know Verstappen won, Lewis got second, blah blah blah. But then people were talking about what Ricciardo did and the stuff, what happened, besides of course the winning. But that's how they help win that as well as make the money, because that's really what it was, right? Before Formula One, it was like it's the echelon of sports, right? But it's like you said, it's Monaco. It's guys in $1 million boats, $1 billion companies, and even just the changes in the rules for the next few years and things like that. They're trying to make it more for the common folk, I guess, to get into it and be involved, or like I said, feel connected to them, even though it's like I said, it's the 20 top drivers in the entire world.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of it too, because I mean, I think back to like, maybe the first years that we were like seriously paying attention, like probably, I don't know, 99, 2000, 2001, up until like 06 or whatever it was, pretty heavy into it, right? We watched almost every race that we could, aside from stuff that was on in the middle of the night, because everything was, or the tape delayed once stuff was tape delayed and we could watch it, but none of that stuff was even on YouTube. You couldn't go find it afterwards. There was no Formula One app to even see what happened. If you missed it, you missed it. And you could read about it on ESPN, but like there wasn't a whole lot, like you just didn't have access to it. And even some of the drivers back then, like we've kind of talked about Max and Lewis, but I just don't know how like someone even like Michael Schumacher, would have been looked at in the modern era of the way fans have access, because that's a really kind of interesting piece to becoming a great athlete now, is like your personality, and your the stuff that you do outside of your sport, in a sense. And to the Max and Lewis conversation, right? I feel like actually let's go back even a little bit further. It's Randy Pobst, right? It's Randy Pobst after every race, and he lists off 15 different sponsors. He's the perfect person to drive any car on the planet, because he's so polished on camera after the race, and everybody wants to sponsor him because he literally is just like, I just want to thank so-and-so for the oil, so-and-so for the tires, so-and-so for the filter, so-and-so for the paint, so-and-so for the sunroof
he always
plug.
Knows what to do with his
like
hand.
He was just so good at it that like we knew him of above all the other drivers in touring car, or even in most sports car racing that we were watching. And now we're getting to this point where it's even more important, right? Where all those clips turn into, people becoming fans for, much longer period of time and bigger spending and all that stuff. But I guess like for you guys being at the track, how did it feel differently compared to, other racing that you've been to? Because obviously, I mean, just the number of people is astonishing to me. I can't really wrap my head around it. I've only been to, Circuit of the Americas for, World Endurance Challenge. And there was a lot of people there, but there was not hundreds of thousands there.
Well, I would say that, like, I mean, never had that experience at an actual track, but we went to Long Beach for all those years, and it's very close to that number. I would actually think that there could be even more than that on a Saturday and Sunday at a city circuit, just because, like, especially Long Beach, there's 100,000 people there that aren't even going to watch the race. They're just there for the party. So it's such a big party that I would imagine that there's that. But like, yeah, it definitely added to it to see, to actually hear that many people in the stands was super cool. I mean, I think that added to it, and almost like, I think from where we were at, like we like realizing that you don't have the full, omnipotent view of like watching on TV. It really, I don't know. I'm curious what you think, Aaron, because it didn't feel like it took anything away from me. It just kind of added suspense. And there were times where like we really wanted to like get an update, and Aaron was helping with that, because it was like, I really didn't want to, I wanted to know what was going on, but there was also just that suspense of like, I've only got to see when they come by and listen to the crowd and how they react and try to like, just, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was definitely unique in that way. And there was more, I'd say there's just like the kind of like, just seeing celebrities, right? It's kind of like something that you feel familiar with these people because you've seen them so much. And then to see them in real life, it's different. And to see the speed of the cars was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it was pretty fantastic in terms of the fact that like yeah, I was just saying, like we've been to Long Beach Grand Prix for racing for Indy weekend and whatnot. I think one thing that Austin and Coda had over that, at least this time, is that like I said, when you go to Long Beach Grand Prix, you feel like half the people, more than half the people are there just for the party and to kick it and to just be by the water and get drunk. Whereas it seemed like a lot more people, whether they really knew what was going on or whatnot, were because obviously there's not the water and there's not yachts and boats out there, so people are paying attention to the actual racing and whatnot. And just around the city and the town, because I flew into San Antonio and drove up, and the hotel was just outside of Austin. But just even the people like at the hotel, like or around the city, like wearing like a Red Bull hat, people ask, "Oh, you're here, obviously you're here for the races," or "Oh, that was a good blah blah blah," and get a lot of that. And I think the whole thing about it all was like a real true like experience. It wasn't just one day of like a race and it's sort of done. It's like okay, it was like well, obviously I missed Friday, but then I got to be there on Saturday for practice and qualifying, and then of course for the race. So it's like it's a continuous like oh you're sort of enamored with like racing and what's even after the race and even flying home, like people on my flight talk about the race and the event and oh yeah well, maybe next year we go to Miami, like we talked about it, maybe next year we go to Canada. Hey, maybe like we hear there's a rumor United States is going to get 3 races. Vegas, definitely want to go Vegas, right? Type thing. So I think the experience actually what I sort of took out of it is like usually for the other races we've gone to is like we've been there for qualifying in the race, but then just like and usually it's like okay it's not, I don't say it's done, but that's with the F1 experience is like it just kept on going. Like there's so much information, videos and stuff out there. It's like even after it's done, you're like, oh, I can watch the video, I can watch the replay. What did they put up on their Instagram feed? What are they going to do next? Blah blah blah. So it was I think the overall experience was just more overwhelming and just more fruitful than I thought it was going to be. So I was actually surprised by that.
And you were there Friday too, right, Ash?
Yeah, we got in Thursday night. So yeah, got in pretty late.
And camped at the track. You have access to like, most of the track on those first couple of days. How is that different?
So yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure what they had going on Thursday. I don't know, but yeah, full access to Friday practice, a free practice. Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty. And then the concerts were included on I think on Friday night, but then Saturday night was like an upgrade. But it's just like they did a pretty good job, like Aaron said, of just like creating a whole weekend of experiences, which is good because it's you people and it takes a lot of energy and money, of course, to put it on, but just it takes a lot to get there, and you want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. And I think that's one of the cool things that I hope that I really hope that more people get an experience to a chance to go to races. I hope if they are going to go after these big numbers, that they find a way to make affordable tickets for people, because I think that I don't know, I think that's important because I think that right now it does, a lot of people get priced out of it. I mean, it was a huge investment for our family. It's like yeah. It's like it's like a Disney World trip to go to a race basically. So it's a big investment.
And you like, could you see the track from where you guys were like camped in the van, parked in the van?
I think no, because we were like basically around turn 7 is where the camping was, and there's once everything filled in, like technically we're like really close, like you're really like a couple hundred yards from the track itself, but like yeah, it's just not, there weren't any vantage points where you could see from there. I think there was some Aaron, didn't you say you had some friends that were over on the other side? I'm not sure if you could see from there, but it seems like almost on the premium camping on the, like, was that like turn 13 or 14, something like that, you could see
Yeah, and they're a little higher up too in terms of vantage, but I believe they also had grandstand seats. So um, I don't know how the actual view was from premium camping, but I mean, and that was my first time at Coda in general, and it definitely, you know, being a few different tracks is like it's definitely walkable, but then it's obviously a long track, and it like there were some parts where like Ash ran into that they close it off, so you had to turn around. And I think that just in general, a lot of tracks could do better about accessibility for different people to get around back and forth. Not saying
Yeah.
accessibility like have golf carts for everybody or anything, but just more bridges or pedestrian passing and stuff like that, just to make it the fan experience better. But in terms of vantage points, I feel like there. I mean, even just general myth GA seats, there's a lot of good vantage points you can get all around. It's just sort of where want to post up and whatnot. Like obviously, if you're trying to get into turn one, then that's be there before crack of dawn, and line up and be ready to run to the hill before. But then around the rest of the track, I feel like a few hours before race time or whatnot, you can probably get good vantage and whatnot. So and the weather being relatively good also I think helped. I mean it was definitely warm, but there was definitely days of overcast and clouds moving in and some breeze. And then, of course, we know there was a little bit sprinkles at the end of qualifying. Things like that definitely helped instead of just being blistering and sun the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, turn one specifically, there was, I mean, I woke up at like 5:30 or 6 here in California, and there was pictures from the line on social media just to get to turn one at that, the race wasn't until what, noon or something. It's like people are standing out there waiting for hours ahead of time. I actually made me think, like when you were talking about being able to hear the grandstand or hear the crowd, one thing that I don't think I've really ever experienced at a race that's different from a lot of other sports is like the massive volume from the crowd, right? Because typically you're at a race where everybody's fairly spread out. Everybody wants their own, space and privacy. And some people want to sit in the grandstands, but like generally you've got a lot of room around you. So you have a small amount of people cheering at a very like, poignant time or whatever, but you're not going to have like loud roars from the crowd the way you would at a basketball game or something like that. And had never noticed it during a race before, but I definitely heard it for this race for turn one at the very beginning on the TV. It was
Yeah,
like,
especially lap one.
it was like a wow for me. Yeah. So where were you guys when the race started, and did you hear that same, like, I'm sure you hear in the cars coming, but are you hearing the crowd at turn one as that whole,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, we posted up at basically on the, like coming into turn 9, we were looking back at 8 and 7. So yeah, I mean, and I think that was because we met up with Aaron, and I think we had the whole family. So like, I think Aaron was cool with, rolling with us, understanding we had the kids to think about. And that was one of the big reasons why we didn't even, I mean, it would have been a bigger price jump for grandstand seats. And I considered doing that, but then I'm really glad we didn't in our particular situation. It also gave us like, because you want the flexibility. I mean, we've gone to sports car races for, a long time now. And I think that especially when you have a longer race, you want to see from different vantage points. So I think for me, I have like this anxiety about getting locked into seeing from one spot, but realizing that it was only, it's less than 2 hours of racing. We didn't go anywhere. Like once the race started, we knew we were going to be there for the entirety of the race. And we picked a spot that was actually pretty open. But yeah, to your point, like we definitely could hear. I think that was what added to it, was the suspense of that and not knowing it was going to come around that curve first, and a little bit of the gut check when it was Hamilton that came around first. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, like Ash said, you could definitely hear it, and we heard the roar, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And like you see it on TV, right? Like when Max was in Dutch Grand Prix, and obviously like in Silverstone, you hear the roars for the home crowd. So it was more surprising just because, like being America, like you're like, oh, I was just sort of wondering even going to the race weekend, like who people were going to be behind and cheering for, right? And
Yeah.
it's interesting because like I'm definitely a Lewis fan, like I have been for a while, especially when he was in McLaren, right? Like Honda McLaren, obviously. um, but then I'm a big Red Bull fan also the past few years. I mean, have been for a long time. Obviously, like Vettel and all those years too. Um, so it's interesting to see, who the crowd was really rooting for, and it's definitely Max and Lewis, and obviously the McLaren guys. And so it was just interesting to hear, like, say the different reactions from the crowd, and it's sort of cool because you like in 2019, Kodo is known to have a lot of passing, and even though it's not really a passing track, so deep down inside, I was hoping it's going to be a lot of passing because I was waiting to see and experience that, to hear people get excited about obviously, because obviously, especially in Formula One, you're not trying to see crashes, but you want to see good racing, tight racing, passes, things like that, and hearing the crowd reaction just enhances that experience, which is pretty cool because we
Yeah.
had like a couple. I think there was one spin out towards the end, and then like I said, where we were stationed, we're right out of the S's before the turn 8, so you can really see the cars working and showing their agility in general. So yeah, it's really cool for that. But like I said, crowd reaction was definitely the best I think of any race I've been to in terms of that. So and that's what I was saying. I was really surprised just how many people were paying attention and not just getting drunk and being there to be there type thing. A lot of people were into the race and actually paying attention to what's going on type thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. I mean, I think that people, once you have to invest that kind of money and time and energy to get to some place like that, like it's a trek to get there. I mean, unless you live around Austin, people came from all over the world, I'm sure, and that's probably another difference between, like, say, like a city circuit or like Long Beach in particular, is that we could find tickets for pretty cheap, especially like when we were going to American Le Mans Series. We could get those for even cheaper because it wasn't even the main event. We wanted to see the sports cars on Saturday. Everyone else is there for a party, and I'm sure they were all over LA for like $20 a pop, so it was just about getting as many people in there as possible. And so there really was no investment into what was going on. It's just like it's just something to do. So I think that adds that to that kind of contrary to the wanting it to be more accessible. Once you get everybody invested in it, even financially, with what it takes to get there, it's like they're going to watch all of it. It seemed like everybody was into it. I mean, nobody up until maybe in between like qualifying and stuff or free practice, but like race time, it seemed like every single person that was there was locked onto what was going on the track, which is pretty cool.
It's interesting that you guys both kind of are talking about the whole weekend experience, right? And that's something that I was gonna ask about, because thinking about like Long Beach that we've been talking about, like Long Beach is obviously one of my favorite events, just because like I would love to live in Long Beach at some point. I just think that's a cool city. It's like kind of low key, but like I love the idea that any city will shut down the whole city for a race weekend anyway. But Long Beach has like, a celebrity race on Friday or Saturday, and drifting, and like the D1 Grand Prix was a part of that for so many years. And then you've got like, I don't know, Rolex now, or whatever Rolex sports, it was American Le Mans for a while. And then it's like, you've got sports cars, then you've got Indy. Like there's so many different like aspects of racing going on. And maybe that does distract from, the diehard fans, I guess, because you don't have the consistency across the whole 2 or 3, 4 days. But this race in Austin, there was no Formula 2, right? So there's really no like secondary entertainment in terms of racing in any way, shape, or form, right? Other than, Danny Ricciardo out there doing donuts in an old NASCAR.
Well, there was Formula 4 actually.
Formula 4, okay.
Formula 4, and then there was the what is it? It's the W series, the Wii series.
Oh yeah. That was the last race of the year. Yeah.
So so there was, but I mean those were really really short. And yeah, I mean it kind of, but those are the kind of things that it's kind of like the opening act. So there were a couple of them, but it definitely wasn't like a full ticket, like compared to some of the others. And I don't know, maybe some of that, I think a lot of that was logistics with getting European teams all the way out here. I don't think that, I'm not sure, but F2 is not going to Mexico either, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'm sure whether it's like logistics or finances or just the pandemic, like I think it was kind of limited in that way, probably for good reason. Cause I mean, look at the turnout without that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it definitely was, what I was going to say was, I think, Formula One, like that's sort of the thing too that surprised me. Like you mentioned, like we're wondering sort of beforehand. Usually, other races, we're like, oh, okay, what? How do we fill in our time, right? 10-minute or half an hour after that race, what's the next series that's popping up? And with that being so limited, I think the focus just being on Formula One, I think was a big part of it because, I was joking to Ash and his wife, like going in line to get merch, right? Like number one, you're waiting in this long line to get merch, and it takes forever because there's a family in the front getting hats for like their whole like neighborhood, and everyone in the back is like, "What's going on right now?" But it was sort of interesting. I was saying like just standing in line because you hear the conversations about the people around you, and you could definitely tell the people that are new to the sport who just got brought in to Drive to Survive, who literally don't know what's going on, but are excited because they're like, oh, this is like the coolest thing I've been to. And like, oh, where can they heard like a group of guys like, oh, where should we go next year? And they're like, oh, where else do they race? And they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot you just, started watching. And they're talking about, like going overseas to watch a race. And I'm like, that's freaking crazy, right? Like just literally getting into the sport and talk about like going to, a race wherever. And not being as into it or invested in it like I think we are, right? Like for years, decades, and whatnot. But I think that's what makes it exciting when people are just like I said, people are like invested in it in that way. And then just talking about merch, just like then you get in line for the merch, and prices are like crazy, right? Like we're joking because they're selling Red Bull Aston Martin gear. It's because they had it on the F1 site for forever for like 20% off. They're like, hey, this is about to be our biggest event. Let's just bring all this gear and charge full price. And, people aren't going to be like, and we were saying, wow, it felt sort of bad because people are just like, oh, let me grab that hat or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, that's like,
I was a little pissed about that one.
Yeah. But I don't want to be the buzzkill, be like, well, that they don't drive for, that's not their sponsors or whatever anymore. But it's like, oh, there's that part of me that's like, or all of us just like, oh, that's just corporate making their buck, right? Like need to make their investment back. But it's also like the part of me that knows business is like, of course I'm going to take advantage of that, right? Like, why would you not? You're going to fill up to your stock with something rather than nothing, and things like that. So, but yeah, just being, the excitement of it all and keeping people excited about it, I think is like I said, with that whole weekend, it just felt like everything was focused around Formula One. Like realistically, most of people, even myself, didn't know like Formula 4 we were going to be there. Like when on the Formula One app, it only shows Formula One. Like it doesn't show any supplementary races. I didn't get a like email saying, oh, this is the schedule for whatever else is going on, like for other events. It was just like, here, download the Coda app, download the Formula One app. Here's your schedule. And it's like, okay, here's qualifying, here's free practice, 1 through 3. And that's all I was planning for. So
was there like other, entertainment stuff like for people that are, like you said, taking the family, is there other stuff there, around the track that can be entertaining? Because I think the one thing that's interesting about racing is that the prices that you pay for a ticket are for 4 days of entertainment, right? You know, essentially you're paying for much more than just the 2 hours that they're racing on the track. And then you're expected to kind of fill in those gaps, even if it's just Formula One, right? It seems like there's all the in-between stuff where it's like, okay, I saw, you know, the Ferris wheel and, you know, whatnot, and all the kind of just extra stuff that ends up filling in the time for people. So what was that like for this race?
So that, like you said, there's definitely the middle section, which a lot of racetrack has, right? The middle section, sort of entertainment venue section where it has a Ferris wheel, it has rides, it has like where the different events or, you know, like the concerts are going to be, as well as like, you know, like the carnival type like food and things like that. And then I know like towards, you know, like where start finish and whatnot, on the map, there's, you know, like obviously like Haas Hill, and there's like different experience venues and whatnot. And I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see it all. I think Ash and the family did on the first couple of days. So like it's not like at least for me, like, and it's not like where you go to Laguna Seca and you see like all the Mazda Speed cars and, you know, like all the old heritage, that stuff. Maybe I just is stuff I missed. But in terms of like that, is more filling in time was more just like, you know, experiencing the track. At least for me, was experiencing the track, seeing what's going on around and whatnot. You know, because obviously it's a big track and you're not, you know, seeing all the different vantage points and views.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that was different, I think, for obviously compared to the sports car races, like we made it out to WEC there, you know, at COTA, the 2014 and 15, and I think that was like us holding on to like that authentic sports car experience after losing American Le Mans Series. And I think that there's more emphasis on that in between stuff because it's like a multiple, you know, it's like a 6-hour race. So, you know, it went into the dark and like there's a lot of racing going on. So like you're obviously not going to stay glued to the track for 6 hours. But you know, so there was like, I even remember that like there was a better Ferris wheel for WEC, but probably just because that like Aaron said, they're not really looking for that too much because everything's happening so fast. And there was less need to fill in, but there was definitely stuff going on. Like we saw like the Lucha Libre was going on like after, like there's music and stuff and plenty of drinking and places to get drinks, bars, that kind of stuff.
What was your favorite food from the weekend?
I think well, it's funny is me personally, I didn't eat a lot at the track because the lines are ridiculously long. But ironically, like the pizza I saw was actually sort of crazy. I saw people barbecue, and I was like, I probably want to get barbecue at the racetrack, especially when you're in Austin, right? Like that's not what you probably want to be there for. To get some drinks, overpriced drinks, which were tasty and good. Definitely had some fair food, like fair fun, you know, like funnel cake and lemonade. That's just like, oh, okay, you got to have that type of stuff. So.
Best thing we had was on Friday for Addie's birthday. Like it was like the end of the day, and we're like, it was just super warm, so we had to get something refreshing. And there was a spot that had they're like, it was like Fruit Ninjas or something like that, or I can't remember what it was, but it was like a pineapple. It's like one of those things, I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically in a pineapple, like chopped up pineapple in a pineapple like freeze smoothie type thing. It was super good.
Oh,
it was well worth the $15 each for those.
Off track though, I do have to give my props to Whataburger. First experience lived up to expectations.
Nice. Wow.
I mean, price wise, it's a little pricey, but in terms of value and quality, definitely up there with the better fast food chains.
Ash, did you get Whataburger?
No.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, it's a. I feel like that's always a debate. I like Whataburger.
I like it. I've had I think.
Oh yeah, you've had it before. Yeah,
I remember enjoying it. Yeah. But we didn't. I got to admit, we were on a barbecue quest, man. We actually did go on Thursday before we got to the track. We went to Switch, which is out in what is it? Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
So we went there, but they were out so this was like the prelude to everything because they were out of everything. Like we got there like an hour before closing. Like we're from California, so we don't understand that everything runs out. Like barbecue places go until they run out of food, and they were super cool. They even all they had was ribs, and then even after we finished eating, they gave us a little bit extra ribs, just say hope you enjoyed it. Here's some extra, because they were out of everything else. But,
that's cool though.
Yeah, on Saturday night we tried making a run, and Aaron was helping us trying to see if we could track down a place. Showed up at one place and they're locked up, sold out, nothing. And you can imagine everybody from all over the world that's there is looking for barbecue, and no luck there.
So. Yeah, it's definitely one of the tough situations about being at a racetrack, because getting in and out, was definitely a challenge. The traffic was no joke. Even before showing up, me staying outside the track, getting a parking pass or, doing a shuttle was a big controversy, because parking passes were super expensive and reselling for, more than Jordan 1s, and things like that. So getting in and out of the track was tough. And, we knew that realistically barbecue, you have to try to get it early. And, there's obviously a lot of good places in Austin that should be there at 6 a.m. But it was tough to try to do that and then try to go to races afterwards. So unfortunately, for me, my barbecue needs were not met. But that's obviously a reason to go back to Texas to fulfill that.
So Aaron, would you fly and travel into the track the way you did this time? And Ash, would you just camp at the track again? How do you guys feel about the whole experience in that regard?
So I think we sort of hacked the system, which sort of helped with Ash camping there. They got 2 parking passes, and I was able to use the second parking pass to drive in and then park there. The nice thing is, after the race for that one night, we all piled in my vehicle, and they obviously left the van there, and we're able to go out and whatnot. Honestly, I think most people know me and humidity don't work out. Me sweating is not anything I enjoy. So when it's me sweating because of humidity, it's not I as much as, I enjoyed the camp experience, especially being around friends, not being able to have, AC or the shower, especially after so if I, next time I probably try to find a place closer, and whatnot. And I'd imagine, the next races to be more, COVID and a lot of, stuff was still restricting, a lot of things, right? So many of our group, it's maybe not this year, maybe the following year or whatever, right? So if there's, if we have more people, the experience of even splitting it, I think would be more enjoyable. Because the sort of suck. Obviously, it's just driving in and out. But then if there's if the car is full, or there's more of you guys, if you came along or whatnot, then it would have made it easier. And I do have to give Texas props for the freeways, what's the road next to the freeways? What's that called? Yeah, those are amazing.
Yeah.
When they're open, and there's not construction being done, but took me a while to get not a while, but and at first it was a little confusing, especially the U-turns in the middle of the street. But I do enjoy those frontage roads. especially when you find out there's like construction. You could just get off and pass by all of it using those life hacks.
Yeah,
Ash,
yeah, I would. I mean, I would definitely recommend camping. We were really happy with camping. I mean, the temperature definitely pushed us out of our comfort zone a little bit. You know, like that's tough, but we like making that long drive. We were pleasantly surprised with how we were able to manage the three kiddos, and from 1 to 8 years old, and keep them all from killing each other and us in 2.5 days, making it halfway across the country. But we did it, and it was well worth it. It was a great, challenging experience, and but very fulfilling. I mean, it just was like a lot of fun to be there. It was like, we've spent so much time, like Laguna Seca's home and camping there is home, and so it's a totally different feeling from that when you're just in a sea of RVs and other bands and that kind of stuff. So it was different, but I think for us, like especially with like a big family, it's like it's so awesome just to be right there, like just to show up and be at the track and it is great to have a good friend who's not at the track, so that when you forgot stuff, he can grab it for you, and it's awesome. So we really helped each other hack, because he got that parking spot, but like we couldn't pack up and go anywhere. So really, like we both got the advantages of like having flexibility of being planted and going in and out. So it was pretty cool. I think, it'd be fun. Definitely would recommend. This is probably what spurred or reinforced our desire to go to Montreal instead, is that we want cooler temperatures. So we're hoping if we camp, we'll be in cooler temperatures. But I don't know. It's June. June in Montreal could still be pretty warm. I'm going to have to look into that. And Austin was actually warmer than it was supposed to be. It's kind of not.
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to be like, it probably should have been like average 70s, which would have been perfect.
But it was like 84, 85, right?
Race day? Yeah. Yeah, it was mid to high 80s, and that humidity.
Yeah, I still got a sunburn.
It was brutal at times until the wind once the cloud cover and a little bit of a breeze, it was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little sweltering.
Yeah, so it's cool to hear that you guys were able to kind of hack the system in that way, because I think like, that's something we've talked about, trying to do the van stuff for a while, where it's like, can we have, once you park, you don't really want to, you don't want to go driving someplace, because it means either leaving stuff out at the campsite or loading it all back up and unloading it again. So always nice to have that support vehicle in a sense.
Yeah, but Hebes was definitely the visit every morning for like 3 days in a row. And I'll shout out to Hebes and San Antonio Spurs fans. I'll know, and I love those commercials. But yeah, they got plenty of my money from my visits every day. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was, like I said, it helped us both, because like just getting ice every single day, right, and refilling that ice chest, because they last because of the heat and humidity, stuff like that, and other various, 12-pack of Red Bull, like beers and stuff like that, right? Like getting refills if we had to. It was definitely,
yeah.
But like I said, yeah, I think, and the craziest thing is, because like before the races, like I looked up all the rules. What can you bring in? It's supposed to be clear bags. Like water bottles have to be clear, can't be open, stuff like that. But like when we got there, they pretty much, especially on race day, it's pretty much a free for all, because I think they just were overwhelmed by the amount of people, and not enough staff. And because that's sort of the thing that everyone's talking about. Like, let's talk about parking. They're saying it's hard to get in and out just on NASCAR or MotoGP. So Formula One's going to be even crazier. And then hear stories about, hey, some of the lot workers in the parking lot just up and quit because they were just so overwhelmed. So like, if they're more stricter about the stuff you can bring in, it probably would have been tougher for a lot of people. But at some point, it seemed like they just gave up and let people come in with like chairs and backpacks full of stuff that usually you want to be able to get in with, and things like that. So, but yeah, like in terms of when and if the next time, like I think if we're able to do the same thing, like I said, the only difference I'd probably get a hotel a little bit closer because like although distance wise is not that far, like it does get the traffic was crazier. Even I thought it was gonna be crazy. It was crazier, just because of the roads, and like you don't expect them to close down a bunch of roads and make them one way, and like make forcing you a certain way, especially when you're in an area that you're not familiar with, like and just relying on Google or Apple maps to get you around, and like the tolls and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it worked out. Like I said, there's definitely some mornings, or like especially the first morning, even though it was in 2 hours, and the excitement was there. Still, tired of the travel, getting in and out because of like my flights and stuff were delayed. So
Yeah, I'm bummed that I missed it. I definitely want to make next year wherever you guys head next year. I want to go. I mean, Montreal sounds amazing. I've been wanting to go there for a long time anyway. So, so last question, you guys got to, they open up the track after, right? So you guys got to walk around the track. Did you walk the whole track, or did you have any like favorite spots on the track as you walk the track, or anything, because I know that experience has got to be kind of crazy, because there's probably a lot of rubber on the track afterwards.
It was awesome. I was wondering if you guys knew or heard anything, because I didn't look into it, whether it was like planned or not, or whether it was, I mean, because it was obviously like open. We had to like find a shortcut like through a fence where like a bunch of people were going through, but there was like already like there were hundreds of people on the track. So we kind of assumed it was planned. I just wasn't aware of it. I don't know if it's like an unofficial thing or what. I'm really curious to know what it was exactly.
yeah, definitely not sure if the track walk afterwards was like a paid thing or just something that they like we weren't aware of. But like we found our way into the track, and probably not through the right entryway. Essentially, somebody like ripped up the fencing and just was like, like somebody ripped up a bunch of fencing, and then like people were just going underneath. So we're like, well, everyone's doing it, and it's going to.
We had the double wide stroller, which was like, that was the big thing, because there was a line. We were gonna wait to get across, and I'm still not sure exactly, but like there was a huge line, like I mean, like a couple thousand deep.
That was also going to the concert, like Shaq's concert.
Yeah, trying to get across the track because the access point was on the other side of the track. So there was a couple access points, but like we ended up getting off across the track on the other side, and then we were able to get back on even later. We were able to get back on and walk more. There were still people walking like 2.5 hours after the race, because they were just out repainting and covering up sponsors and that kind of stuff, tearing down banners. So they're pretty much just working. And again, I don't know if it seemed like that was a reoccurring theme for the weekend, with like them just kind of being overwhelmed with how many people, because the same thing happened when we showed up for camping. Like everybody showed up that same day, and they couldn't tell people where to go. So everybody just filled in and just took spots. Huh. There was no way to like, they didn't have the manpower. So yeah, I think it was probably the same thing for being on the track. I don't know. Like it just kind of like, whether they had planned it or not, they just kind of let it keep going, because everybody's working. They're like, they don't have time to like shoo people off or give them,
well, that's interesting or whatever. Because previous races at COTA, you didn't go onto the track for the celebration, right? You just stayed in the grandstand to watch. But obviously for this, it seemed like, I mean, at least from from watching on TV, it seemed like it was totally intentional to let everybody on to the essentially where the grid is at the start line, to watch the celebration afterwards, in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think the intention was to have people on, but I think it just got, like I said, I think got overwhelming, and I think they sort of gave up, because it did sort of suck, because we walked a good amount of the track, like especially we went almost to start finish. But up there, they're doing a lot of work, so we went up to turn one, and whatnot, right, and see the elevation and the angle, like especially the camera angle, the video view that most people saw from. So that was pretty cool. But then when you let that many people on track and sort of like there's nobody like monitoring what's going on, then people leave trash and beer cans, and so you get sort of upset because you're like, oh well, the next time that's not going to be allowed, or like they're going to be more strict about it, or it's going to be a paid $50 experience fee to do it and stuff, because it was just open, right? Like we got on, everyone, even us and the kids were picking up rubber, taking as many pictures as you want, like I said afterwards. I mean, you see some of the crew members riding their bikes just to get exercise, and other people, just regular people, just like like running around the track, like getting their exercise in. So it's sort of funny and interesting at the same time, and a really cool experience. And this is after leaving is sort of when I reflected on it. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if that would ever happen again, just because of like literally like the fences are ripped up, people were getting in from different parts that weren't supposed to be. So we'll see. But that
was super cool experience.
Awesome to be on the course, of course.
Yeah,
Aaron, I'm going to ask you first. So, how do you compare that turn one to like the corkscrew or like the backside of Laguna Seca? Because it's way higher in person than it is on TV, right?
And it definitely is. Like I when I was looking down at it, I'm just like, man, okay, like obviously this is Formula One, and we knew like the Mercedes is going to have more power than the Red Bull, and that's how Lewis really got to turn one, or in lap one. And I was just thinking like, wow, like if you're in a regular vehicle, right, like Honda Civic or whatever, just normal sports car, I'm like, that's probably a good, like if you had a four banger versus a V6 or a 8-cylinder or whatnot, like you definitely would get. That's not the line or the place you want to be. But it's I mean, the corkscrew is just a corkscrew. Like there's no beating that, right? Like it's just, especially when you get to experience it in that elevation and just the feeling of it. Because the corkscrew is different, because turn one you're going uphill and then going down. You know what I mean? But the corkscrew is just like, it's the corkscrew. I think everyone, especially for not even just American racing, I think around the world, it's just iconic, from Gran Turismo's and Forzas and things like that. Like as cool as turn one is at COTA, like I don't think anything could beat that. So personal.
Ash, you've ridden your bike at Laguna Seca, right? Do they ever do like reverse on the bikes?
We did that once. Yeah, it was brutal. Because it's like vertical on the back, like the way up. I actually tried going up on the 10 speed with, I think it was with Avery on the back when he was little, and I had to get out. It was like where I was going to fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So, I guess do you guys want to say your socials or whatever so people can follow you?
Twitter, Instagram, Aaron AIRON 0828. Although I actually didn't post anything for Formula One up there, but you see my hot takes about the Sacramento Kings on Twitter, and every now and then some sneaker and food pictures on Instagram.
How about you, Ash?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Ash Lewin Design.
Cool. If you made it this far on the podcast, you just need to realize that the diehard Formula One fans like Ash here take their 1-year-old to celebrate their birthday at the Formula One race. So just step your game up, I guess.
we had to keep the tradition going, because that was Avery's month and a half was the trip across to Road America for United Sports Car, and then with Arlen, he was still in the womb when he went to his first race at Laguna Seca. So we had to keep it going. Yep. It seemed like it was perfect timing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm bummed that I missed it, but I'm definitely excited that you guys got to go, and glad that I got to talk to you guys about it, because I feel like a little bit of my soul is healed from missing out, from chatting with you guys. So Thanks for spending the time with me. Thanks everybody for listening.